Welcome back, fight fans. Gervonta "Tank" Davis has taken the boxing world by storm, boasting an undefeated 30-0 record with a jaw-dropping 28 knockouts. Coming from the gritty streets of Baltimore, Davis hasn't just risen to fame. He's dominated, especially after capturing the WBA World Lightweight title with his lethal mix of raw power and slick technique. Most recently, he defended his belt against the tough Frank Martin and is now set to defend it again against the rugged Lamont Roach on December 14th in Houston, Texas. But what makes Tank such a dangerous force? Let's dive into his fighting style and see what's next for the champ. Gervonta Davis isn't just a force in the boxing ring, he's just as intense outside of it too. Whether he's beefing with his former mentor Floyd Mayweather or pulling wild stunts on Instagram Live, Davis always finds a way to be at the center of attention. But when it comes to the ring, no one dares to mess with him, and his skills speak for themselves. It's no surprise that he came up through the Mayweather Boxing Club, soaking up all the knowledge from one of the greatest in the game, Floyd Mayweather. That connection is part of what's made him such a dominant fighter today. When it comes to Gervonta Davis's boxing style, there are a few key things that really set him apart. First off, he fights in a southpaw stance, and that alone gives him an edge. Why? Well, not many fighters are used to facing southpaws, so it can really throw them off. Then, there's how he uses his lead hand. It's not just for jabs. He'll extend it to control the distance, mess with his opponent's vision, and even play with their guard. Meanwhile, his rear hand stays locked by his face, ready to block any big right hands coming his way. Davis also has some slick head movement. He'll duck and weave, sometimes to feint, sometimes to avoid shots. What's smart about this is he never drops his hand while doing it, so even if his opponent tries to throw a low punch, he's still protected. But what really makes Tank dangerous is his power and how he reads his opponents. He's got the ability to fight off the back foot and circle around the ring, setting up traps until he sees an opening. That's how he's managed to knock out 28 of the 30 guys he's faced. He's always looking for that moment to strike. Gervonta Davis is all about that low-volume, high-impact approach. What that means is he doesn't waste punches. Instead of throwing a ton of shots, he picks his moments carefully, conserving his energy and making every punch count, which is especially important in those longer fights. A big part of his game is counterpunching. Davis loves to feint and watch how his opponents react, studying their tendencies. Once he's got them figured out, he's ready to strike with a devastating counter, using his timing and distance control to land those hard shots when his opponent least expects it. Another key aspect of his style is how he works the body. Davis throws some vicious body shots, especially with that straight left and lead hook and uppercut. It really starts to wear down his opponents as the fight goes on. The beauty of those body shots is that they force his opponents to drop their guard. And when they do, Davis is quick to go upstairs, landing those powerful headshots that have led to so many of his knockouts. When it comes to defense, Gervonta Davis is a master. His head movement is on point. He'll duck and weave, using it not just as a feint, but as a way to avoid punches while keeping his hands up to block any low shots. His footwork plays a huge role too, allowing him to create angles, get out of danger, or move after throwing combinations. Davis also uses his jab in a really smart way. It's not just about hitting his opponent. He'll extend it to mess with their vision, block their hands, and throw off their timing. This gives him the perfect setup to launch his attacks. One thing that's underrated about Tank is his ring IQ. He knows how to control the pace and distance of the fight using his footwork and movement. He's always positioning himself in the right spots, setting traps for his opponents. And when he backs into a corner or ropes, it's usually a setup. He tricks his opponents into thinking they've got him, but it's usually a bait for a counter like his fight against Rolly Romero. Davis is also a sharp observer in the ring. He'll spot the smallest openings, stay patient, and use fakes to test his opponent, waiting for them to expose themselves. When they do, that's when he goes in for the knockout blow. While Gervonta Davis's style is super effective, it does come with a few downsides he needs to watch out for. First, even though his defense is solid, he can still get caught with clean shots, especially if he gets too aggressive or relies too much on that shoulder roll. It's worked for him, but sometimes he leaves himself open. There's also the power factor. Davis loves to knock people out, but that can sometimes make him focus too much on landing the big shot instead of sticking to solid technical boxing. Against someone who's more technically sound and can avoid those power punches, that could be a problem. Stamina can also be an issue for him in the mid to later rounds. His explosive style takes a lot of energy, and by the later rounds, that intensity and power may start to fade. So far, we've yet to see this happen. His power seems to carry over well in the later rounds, but we haven't seen him go into deep waters against elite opposition. Also, his fights usually don't make it to the championship rounds, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's not careful, however, that could cost him against someone with elite footwork who can last longer in the fight. Handling pressure is another area where Davis can struggle. If he's up against an opponent who is just as aggressive and able to push back like him, it forces him to adapt, and that's not always easy for him. There's also the risk of injury. His style involves a lot of exchanges, and when you're mixing it up like that, especially against heavy hitters like Pitbull Cruz, there's always the chance of getting hurt. And lastly, Davis's confidence, while usually an asset, can sometimes turn into overconfidence. If he underestimates an opponent or takes an unnecessary risk, it could backfire on him. For Gervonta Davis to really capitalize on his strengths while minimizing the risks, there are a few things that he needs to keep in mind. First off, he's got to stay disciplined with his defense. It's easy to get caught up in offense, especially with the power he has, but he can't let his guard down. Staying sharp on defense is key to avoiding unnecessary shots. Pacing himself is another big one. His explosive style takes a lot out of him, so he has to manage his energy, especially in those longer fights. If he burns out too early, that could spell trouble in the later rounds. Then, even though his power is a huge weapon, Davis needs to stay precise with his punches and combos. Being too focused on knocking someone out can lead to sloppy technique, and that opens up the door for counters from skilled opponents. He also has to respect his opponents, no matter what their record or style is. Overconfidence can be dangerous, so thorough preparation for each fight is non-negotiable. If Davis keeps these things in check, he can continue dominating the ring by using that lethal mix of power, speed, and boxing IQ to secure victories. Gervonta Davis's rise from the streets of Baltimore to becoming the WBA World Lightweight Champ really shows the skill, determination, and drive to be the best. What do you think about Gervonta Davis's boxing style? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content.